Mountaineer Nation, let's ride.
But Don Nealon's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread. As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football. Here is Harrison trouble. Stiff arms. The would-be tackler comes down over the 25 to 20. Goes around about it to 15 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
Takes the Slater one-on-one with the defender. Look at that one.
West Virginia football. They don't know what that's about. They don't know what it's about. West Virginia football. We're all our people. They can shoot up on fire. We're here to help. Let them know. Leave no doubt tonight. Leave no doubt tonight. No doubt. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast channel, our August 17th edition. Been a while since we've done one of these, so excited to get back to it and got a ton of fun topics to get to. I know WVU just had a breaking basketball commitment, and we're going to get to that momentarily. But I want to lead this off with the Big 12 predictions for people that may be here that are only fans of the Big 12 and not necessarily fans of West Virginia. So I want to lead off with that. Get that out of the way so people can tune into that and then get into our West Virginia content after that. But we'll start with the basketball commit once we do get to the West Virginia news. Got the show schedule on the board there behind me if you can't see it, but I'm going to touch on some Big 12 predictions, the basketball commit, a little bit of a couple other basketball odds and ends, and then going to get into some football news, some stuff from fall camp. Haven't really had a chance to talk about it too much. It's been a crazy month for me, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. I got some clips pulled from Neil Brown's press conference talking about a couple of freshmen, talking a little bit about the first scrimmage, got the second one coming up on Saturday. And, you know, by this coming Monday, of course, it'll be the mock game week for the team, and they'll be narrowing down the two deep by then. So we're getting really close to the start of football season. So I'm excited to dive in on some football topics. You guys know recently we released the season prediction roundtable, and that's been performing great. So really appreciate you guys that have tuned into that, whether it's been listening to it or viewing it. Loved having Coos and Mountaineer Paul on there. Really a great show. Hopefully you guys check that out for our WVU predictions. But along with that, I wanted to give my Big 12 predictions. And of course, you know, take these with a grain of salt. I didn't really research these too much. It's, you know, pretty much gut feeling. It's kind of like I mentioned on that season prediction roundtable episode. I don't really dive in with a deep analysis of each team until West Virginia plays them. So, and if West Virginia doesn't play them, then I, probably won't be diving in too deep on them. But I went through each Big 12 team's schedule, kind of picked each game as a winner or loss, similar to what we did with West Virginia, to come up with my predicted Big 12 standings for this upcoming season. So we'll dive in on that first. But of course, I want to remind you guys before we do so, if you're tuned in here, whether you're live or on a playback, hit the thumbs up button. It really helps us here. It'll help this video's performance and future videos performances here on the channel. And be sure, if you're a WVU fan or a Big 12 fan of college sports in general, hit the subscribe button. It helps us and it helps you, helps get more of this content out to the fans of college sports. And if you're in here and you want to drop your questions in, I'll try and touch on as many of your guys' questions, comments, concerns throughout the stream as possible. But the one way to, guarantee your comment gets pulled up and read is to send it as a super chat. And we really appreciate that as well. The little $ in the chat box there, but we appreciate any and all comments along the way, and we'll try and touch on them throughout. But with no further ado, let's dive in on my Big 12 predictions for the upcoming season. Obviously, this is just in alphabetical order. I'm just going to share this on the screen with you guys. But in alphabetical order is how I went through this. So you'll see each team's predicted record here. I've got Baylor 5-7, 3-6 in the conference. BYU 6-6, 4-5. Cincinnati 3-9, 1-8. Sorry, Bearcats fans. A little bit of worried with Satterfield coming in and losing Luke Fickell. Plus, transition to a new conference can be tough. That's why you'll see I got a lot of these newcomers kind of struggling a little bit, as you see there with Houston at 6-6, 3-6 in the conference. I've got Iowa State 4-8, 2-7 in the conference. Losing Hunter Deckers, everything going on there. I think it's a bit of a distraction. Not to mention going to have an inexperienced, essentially quarterback there. Maybe with a WVU tie, of course, as we know, Anthony Beck's son, Rocco Beck, may be the starting quarterback there. And then I've got Kansas continuing the great path that they're on with Lance Leipold there. I've got Kansas going 7-5, 4-5 in conference, including some big surprising wins you may see there on their schedule. Kansas State, this is the team I'm really riding this year. I think that they're going to be really good. We saw it last season. Obviously, they won the Big 12 championship game, but I think they've got the potential to be just as good this year, if not even better. I've got them 10-2, 7-2 in conference. And then Oklahoma. I'm really thinking that Brent Venables is finally going to get it going there. I think he's got a defensive scheme that takes a little bit to adapt to. I think they've really brought in some pieces throughout this offseason that's going to improve that defense. And if they can improve that defense, it's going to go a long way for them being successful this season. Last year, their offense really wasn't an issue for the most part, save for Dylan Gabriel, struggling with injury at times, which has been the story throughout his career. But, Jeff Lebby is a great offensive coordinator. I think Oklahoma is going to have a big bounce back season as Brent Venables really transitions into, a smooth role there at Oklahoma. I think this is when you start to see them turn the corner and we see what he can do. I've got them 10-2, 7-2 as well. Oklahoma State 7-5, 4-5, taking a little, I guess not really a step back, but, I think that they're going to be middle of the road of the conference this year, but taking a big step back in my eyes this year. I've got TCU doing that. The main reason to me is, we talked a little bit about this on the aforementioned season prediction roundtable episode. Kuz brought it up, and I thought it was a great point that when you have a lot of close wins and you have the ball bounce a lot your way, you had a lot of good luck last year. There's a lot of good, luck involved in a championship type season, which TCU reached the Big 12 championship game. And then, of course, we know went on to play for a national championship, losing in a, big manner there to Georgia. But when you have those close wins go your way, a lot of times the next season that ball bounces back the other way. So I don't think the ball is going to bounce TCU's way as much this season, for one. I also think that a big reason for their success is something that Mountaineer Paul talked about on our season prediction roundtable episode, and that's Max Duggan. He's just a special player, had a very special season. I think Chandler Morris is good. He has potential, and I think TCU still has some good receivers there and some good pieces, but I'm just expecting them to fall back to earth a little bit. I've still got them bowl eligible, though, 6-6 overall, 3-6 in the conference. And then Texas, this is the team that everyone's kind of riding this year. And, I think they're going to be good, but you see, I don't have them having as much success as I had Kansas State and Oklahoma. And really one of the main reasons for that is because last year we did a Big 12 prediction show as a podcast episode, me, Brad, and Steven. And I was high on Texas. The roster was awesome, and they let me down. And I think that's the story with Texas every year. It seems like, right? They have all the pieces, but for some reason they don't get it done. So last year I predicted it would finally be the year that they did it, got it done, got to the Big 12 title game. They burnt me. So this year I'm not going that again. I'm not predicting them to make the Big 12 championship game, but I do think that they have a really good team and are going to have a good season. I got them 9-3, 7-2. And the sleeper team to me in the conference is right here. Texas Tech. Also have them having the same record as Texas at 9-3 and 7-2. I think that they're going to be very good. Tyler Shue, Baron Morton, whoever it is at quarterback, they're loaded across the board. They've got a lot of good pieces. We saw them have a good season last year, and I think they're going to be even better this year. And then you got UCF, who I think will have the most success out of the new teams. I've got them 7-5, 4-5 in conference. And of course, if you watch the season prediction roundtable, you saw I predicted West Virginia to go 8-4 and 6-3 in conference. So having said that, my predicted Big 12 standings look like this. I've got Kansas State and Oklahoma playing for the Big 12 championship game. I think Kansas State repeats and has a big year, wins the Big 12 title yet again, personally. But I think it'd be a good game to see them and Oklahoma match up for that Big 12 championship game, which is what I have. Texas third, Texas Tech fourth. I've got WVU top 5 in the conference. They're edging out Kansas, who I think, like I said, top half of the conference team under Lance Leipold this year, I think, at number 6. Oklahoma State 7th, UCF and BYU 8 and 9. And then 10 through 14, I got TCU, Houston, Baylor, Iowa State, and as I said, Cincinnati going to have a struggle of a year as well. So those are my Big 12 predictions. Wanted to get those out of the way at the top of the show for people that may not be fans of West Virginia as we dive in more on specific West Virginia content throughout the rest of the stream. But of course, would love for you to stay tuned in, even if you aren't a fan of West Virginia. If you're just a Big 12 fan, college sports fan, drop your questions, comments, concerns in the chat as well. We'll talk about whatever you like. And speaking of, we've got a chat here from Braxton. He asked, do you think we'll get a couple more transfers with the walk-on scholarships, or do we quit there? In my opinion, get more transfers with the walk-on scholarships we have. Excuse me. Personally, I think that they're just going to keep what they've got. They've got 2 scholarships left at this point. You know, they were really looking to add a linebacker. I think we know that will linebacker is probably the big question mark on this team, on this defense of the football team specifically. So I think right now that you'll probably see one of the walk-ons that's been having, you know, a good off season for West Virginia earn a scholarship or 2, actually, I guess, since there's 2 scholarships left. I think you'll see that happen maybe towards the latter portion of fall camp. You'll see a couple walk-ons get those final 2 scholarships. We've seen West Virginia do that in the past with guys like Grayson Malashevich, Preston Fox, Nick Malone, you name it. So I think that's what they'll do with those final 2 scholarships personally, Braxton. But having said that, let's move on to the big news of the day. Of course, West Virginia basketball getting a big commit here, and this should round out the basketball roster as well now. We knew they had 2 spots remaining following Omario Silverio's waiver being denied. They filled one with A Cook, who I talked about in our most recent podcast episode, was a big addition to the West Virginia front court. And then now they've brought in someone else to help the backcourt, and that is Noah Farrakhan, who was once a highly regarded player out in high school, a 5-star recruit at one point during his recruitment there. A high-flying guard, great ball handling skills, can really attack the rim, and I think this is an excellent pickup for West Virginia. Has a couple years of eligibility remaining. I don't believe he's graduated, though, so he will need be one of those guys that needs a waiver. As you see here, this is from WVSportsNow.com that I'm sharing this article from, written by Ethan Bach. But you see there, of course, even flying for the dunk in the picture, and I'll show about 30 seconds of his highlights they've got here in this article momentarily. But 6'2", played at Eastern Michigan in 31 games, averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, and over 2 assists. Shot 43% from the field, only 24% from 3. So you can see his game is more attacking the basket, it seems. Once, like I said, formerly a 5-star recruit at one point while playing at the Patrick School. Becomes WVU's 13th player for the upcoming season, but will need a waiver as expected. So personally, I'm not expecting to see him play this season, but he will be an absolute weapon for the future of Mountaineer basketball. But who knows? They may surprise us and get a waiver for him. They may have something planned out, but either way, 2 years of eligibility remaining for this impressive athletic guard. And as you can see, West Virginia's roster here, detailed of what it will be once these players officially sign on. We're still waiting on a Cook, and now I know a Farrakhan to sign officially with the team. But this is what the roster is looking like for West Virginia for the upcoming season. A lot of talent here, as Ethan mentions in this article. Forward a Cook, guard Jeremiah Bembry, transfer from Florida State, guard Raekwon Battle, center Jesse Edwards, who's doing a great job right now playing some international basketball against some NBA players even, and he's putting on a show. Noah Farrakhan at guard, who we're talking about now, Josiah Harris back at forward, Kobe Johnson back at guard, Kirk Reese, the transfer in from Arizona, is going to be an awesome point guard for the Mountaineers. Ofri Neve, the recent addition from Israel, I believe it is, did a video of him on the channel you can check out here on the Country Roads webcast channel. Jose Perez, of course, we know the transfer from Manhattan, staying at West Virginia, flirted with the transfer portal a little bit, but ultimately electing to come back to WVU and going to be a huge piece for the starting five and for this season. Quinn Slazinski, the transfer forward, Pat Sumnick back at forward, and Seth Wilson back at guard. So Noah Farrakhan going to be a great addition to this roster. And let's take a look. Him attacking the rim here on these first few plays that we'll look at. There you can see a nice up and under. So he's really just an athletic guard that has great ball handling skills, really fast, can get to the rim. And like I said, super athletic, high flyer. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a piece for the future of West Virginia basketball. You see a couple of his plays there on this highlight reel shared on this article from WVSportsNow.com. So that's the big news for WVU basketball. Wanted to touch on that for sure. Other than that, the only thing that I thought was interesting WVU basketball wise, or not the only thing interesting, but the only thing that I had to touch on WVU basketball wise, because mainly wanted to touch on some football topics here, but with that breaking news, had to cover the commitment of Noah Farrakhan. But top 10 transfer portal steals as ranked by On3. You see up there at the very top, Raekwon Battle, who we talked about. It's going to be an absolute stud for West Virginia this upcoming season if he gets that waiver, which apparently, according to people around the program, they feel really good about it. So hopefully it turns out better than it did for, Silverio this season and Perez, the season prior. But if Battle does get it, I think he's got a great chance to potentially even be West Virginia's leading scorer. He's that good. So definitely agree with On3 here. He was an absolute steal and love seeing him ranked that high by them. Take a swig of my coffee real quick, and then we'll switch gears and get into some more football topics. But like I said, as always, encourage, drop your questions, comments, concerns in the chat, touch on some of them throughout here as well. All right, much better, much better. WVU football going deep. What's going on, man? Just watched your video on the press conferences of Coach Marshall and Coach Jackson today. Great stuff. Really enjoyed that. He says, I don't think there's any need to bring in another player and really feel Will is going to be solid, although inexperience there may be a problem the first few games. Completely agree with you. And I've got something on the Will linebackers coming up here, a few in the stream, actually. Hudson Clement definitely sounds like a strong candidate to get a scholarship. While Marshall was really high on him today. Yeah, I think that he's one that I would look out for. I think Hudson Clement is one, and I believe it was Bryce Biggs, I think, on the offensive line was another one that I had heard. But also, I think Danny King is in a competition at the kicking spot as well, and he's a preferred walk-on. So there's certainly several names on there, but I think Hudson Clement's probably one that's at the top of the list, I would say. For sure. Appreciate you as always, WVU football going deep. And having said that, let's transition into some football topics here. Some news stuff here to start with. A couple players named to watch lists. One is Aubrey Burks, who you guys have probably gotten tired of me singing the praises of throughout this offseason, but I'm really high on him, and I think he's going to be a very special player. But as you can see, Aubrey Burks named to the Chuck Bednarik Award watch list, entering his junior season this upcoming year. This also written by Ethan Bach over on WV Sports Now. And I think he's going to have a very special season. He's one of the highest rated safeties returning in Power 5. I believe he is the highest rated safety returning in Power 5, according to PFF, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the top Power 5 defenders as well, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So certainly a guy that has a lot of potential to have a big year. So glad to see him being recognized there. And then another Mountaineer who we know is going to have a big season on the opposite side of the ball. A fan favorite from last year, really burst onto the scene as a true freshman. Anytime you come out and have the debut that he did in a backyard brawl game, you're going to draw, some attention from the fans and some love from the fans. And C.J. Donaldson did last year. Last year he wore number 12. This year, you see here in the picture over on this article on WV Sports Now, written by Kelsey LaRose. He's wearing number 4 this season, of course, switching that number up. I did a video covering all the roster number changes for West Virginia this season, covering all the players' jersey numbers. You can find that on the channel as well. But there you see the graphic shared on the West Virginia football Twitter. C.J. Donaldson named to the Doak Walker Award watch list given annually to the top running back in college football. And I think he has that type of potential. I think he's an all Big 12 caliber back, certainly going to be one of the best in the conference and maybe the best, and has potential to be up there nationally. But West Virginia does have a loaded running back room. So we'll see how much of the load he carries, but he's a guy that has a ton of potential, and I'm glad to see him back for another season here for the Mountaineers. And then, of course, another guy that we got to talk about, we've talked about him being on multiple award watch lists this offseason, and we've also talked about him being on multiple All-America teams. So it's just another one for Zach Frazier, the West Virginia center, who I believe could be the top center in college football this season. He is a first-team All-American, according to The Athletic, so they obviously tend to agree with me there, ranking him as the first-team center in all of college football. So a great honor there. You see the graphic from West Virginia football here, and this article written by Mike Ostie over on WVSportsNow.com as well. And not the first All-American honor for Zach Frazier this offseason, and maybe not the last as well. ESPN, as you see, has honored him. Watch list for the Outland Trophy, Werfel Trophy, first team preseason All Big 12 team. So Zach Frazier, we're expecting a big season from this year and expecting big things from the West Virginia offensive line in general. I've talked and said over and over, I think it's going to be the best at West Virginia since at least 2016 and could even top that offensive line. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But we know that the offensive line really plays a big part in the team's success, is how they do in the trenches. So if you have a good offensive line, you got a great chance at success. And even getting more into that, if you have a good center, you really have a good chance. And West Virginia has one of the best that they've had in quite some time. And we saw that lead to a great success in 2016 when they had a good offensive line and a good center in Tyler Orlowski. So hopefully West Virginia is able to repeat that and really turn a corner in the Neil Brown era and get some wins like I predicted in the season prediction roundtable, right? Let's hope so. Let's hope so. But I'm hoping to see it. Debbie Football to Going Deep says, got the name reversed. I'm the one who needs coffee. Hey, I picked up what you were putting down anyway. It happens. It's easy to do for sure. But speaking of coffee, I'm going to take another swig of mine, and then I want to talk a little bit about some fall camp comments from Neil Brown, one involving the Will linebackers that WVU Football Going Deep brought up earlier, and someone that's kind of starting to stand out there a little bit maybe, but just 1 second. All right. So this is coming from Neil Brown's August 14th press conference, which was the one that followed the first scrimmage. That scrimmage was closed on Saturday, so we didn't get to hear really anything about it till Neil Brown's press conference on Monday, which, didn't really give us too much, but there were a couple of comments from it that I liked, both regarding freshmen, actually, one being a redshirt freshman, one being a true freshman, one on defense, one on offense. We're going to talk about the defensive side first, and that would be the redshirt freshman, and it's at that will linebacker position, and that's Trey Lathan. But here is some of Neil Brown's comments that I really liked in regards to Trey Lathan.
Yeah, Trey Lathan had a great day today and made a big step on Saturday too. And he's athletic. That's what we're looking for. He's so you got to remember he played receiver in high school, played a little bit of defense his senior year. But from a size, speed, length, he's those things. He needs repetitions. And I thought he had a really nice day on Saturday, and I thought he may have had the best day of anybody out there today. He had a pick six in a team drill. Had a really nice stop on a run play in a fourth down period we did, and so pleased with his progress. And he can do it. We just got to get him. We got to get him ready to go fast.
So there you have it. That certainly sounds like Trey Lathan may be making a move at that will linebacker position. And as WVU football going deep brought up earlier, West Virginia has some talented guys, I think, at that will linebacker spot. It's just the inexperience that really scares you, especially with how you're opening the season. First game on the road, 100,000 people in the stadium at Penn State. Going to be loud. You know, the AP polls come out. They're ranked number 7 in the country. So you're facing a top 10 team on the road. And actually, I believe, I think it was Coos I heard brought this stat up the other day that West Virginia's highest ranked road win ever was beating a number 9 team. So if West Virginia was to somehow go in there and pull off the upset, that would be the highest ranked road win in school history, guys. Highest ranked road win that WVU football has ever had. So that's the type of environment that you're going into in game 1 and the type of atmosphere you're going to be facing. So, you know, hopefully the lights aren't too bright for some of these young guys at that will linebacker position, but I've got a lot of faith in those guys. Joffa Veras, I thought looked really good in the spring. Ben Cutter, they sound like that they're really high on him. I think it's just a matter of getting him physically ready, if you're asking me, because I believe he's only, 210, 215. So we'll see if he contributes early. He may be a guy that comes on, more middle to latter portion of the season and gets more playing time. But right now, it sounds like Trey Lathan's really coming on, and that doesn't surprise me. Looking at last year's recruiting class, he was, one of the top 3, I think, recruits in that class, a 4-star guy out of Miami. And he's actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's how we found C.J. Donaldson, I do believe. I believe that they were recruiting Trey Lathan and seen C.J. Donaldson on tape. And then that's how they found him and ended up getting both those guys to come to West Virginia. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Trey Lathan was the one there. Gulliver Prep in Florida was the school, if I'm not mistaken. But Trey Lathan, Neil Brown mentioned as well, I don't know if it was in that press conference or another one, that he primarily, he did play some defense, but he was used at receiver a lot. He's a super athletic guy. So that's why it took him, kind of a little bit last season. He didn't really see the field until late last season. We finally saw him get some action, but then it took him, that whole year. He only played in less than 4 games. That's how he's still a freshman, going to be a redshirt freshman for us this season to really get acclimated. And now sounds like he's ready to go. Love the sound of, him getting that pick 6 and standing out at that position. And then not only, getting that pick 6 in the scrimmage, but then of course that Monday on the 14th that Neil Brown had this press conference, a couple days ago now, had the best day in practice out of anyone, according to Neil Brown. So that's a great time to be looking good as they're trying to narrow down that 2 deep now. So love the sound of that for sure. W Football Going Deep says, thanks for mentioning the video. Really liked Marshall's press conference and think he'll turn out a great room. The receiver version of Chad Scott. Yeah, I got high hopes for Bilal Marshall as well. I think that it was 247 Sports. Is that who? I can't remember right off. Let me see if I can pull it up actually, so I don't misspeak on it. But it was a 30 for 30 under 30 coaches. Let's see if I can pull it up. But either way, Bilal Marshall was ranked as one of the top 10, I believe it was, or top 5. I think it was at least top 10 coaches under the age of 30. So certainly appears to be a rising star. And like you said, maybe the wide receiver version of Chad Scott even. So I got high hopes for him as well. And I'm hoping this receiver room turns out to be really good. I think it's a question mark, obviously, and a lot of national pundits are looking down on it, as I think I heard you mention in your video as well, W Football Going Deep, because from the outside looking in, if you're not someone that follows the program day to day, like a lot of us throughout Mountaineer Nation do. Sorry guys, I got terrible allergies and I cut the grass today. So, but if you're not someone that follows it closely like we do, you don't realize that, yes, West Virginia is replacing, wholesale replacing their wide receiver room, losing all 4 of the guys that really played major minutes last year. But the guys they brought in are guys that have experience elsewhere, and a guy like Devin Carter. So although he doesn't have experience at WVU, he has a ton of experience at NC State. And then you got guys that you're returning, that there's JUCO guys that take until usually their second year in the program to really take off. I mean, look, even Kevin White, Mario Alford, their first year, really didn't hear much from him. But then the second year, they took off. Mario Alford in that first game ran the kickback against Alabama. And, of course, we know Kevin White, the special season he had, 1,500 yards receiving or whatever it was, special season. And so you got those JUCO guys coming into their second year now at wide receiver in this year, and those being Cortez Braham and Jeremiah Aaron. Jeremiah Aaron, I think, is going to be, starting in the slot and going to really be a fast receiver for the Mountaineers. And then, of course, Cortez Braham's the other guy that's solidified on the outside. And I think that's your top 3 wide receivers right there. So despite the fact that, yes, you're wholesale replacing it, you got an experienced guy in Carter. You got 2 JUCO guys that are coming back their second year in the program, ready to make an impact. And then beyond that, you've got a lot of depth, actually. You got Jashawn Polk. You got, the preferred walk-on Hudson Clement you brought up. This is the year where you're going to see Preston Fox really get some playing time. I feel like he's going to be steady. Noah Massey that they brought in, I think, is going to be interesting. They've got to have such a big wide receiver playing in the slot position, 6'4", nearly 240 pounds. And then EJ Horton, let's not leave out the Marshall transfer that everyone is raving about his speed. So he could potentially even be the deep threat. So yes, they're replacing a lot in the wide receiver room, but I think quietly it's very deep due to the pieces that they've brought in and how differently they can use some of these pieces. But I think that those, first level guys, if you want to call it that, which to me, I think are going to be Devin Carter, Cortez Braham, and Jeremiah Aaron. I think that those are guys that can really help you and really do some damage this season to opposing defenses. And I didn't even bring up, a couple of true freshmen in Rodney Gallagher and Traylon Ray. And that transitions perfectly into my next clip I wanted to share from that same Neil Brown press conference. This one is in regards to Traylon Ray, the aforementioned 4-star wide receiver. And, Rodney Gallagher is the one that everyone is super excited about because obviously that's one of the highest rated recruits in program history, right? I believe, top 15, top 16, whatever he was as an all-time recruit at WVU, in the program's history. And certainly I think he's going to be a superstar. And they've talked about him as well. And he's further ahead than they thought because, after playing quarterback, they didn't know if he'd be ready to do blocking and things like that, but he has. And so he's further along. But I think, flying under the fans' radar at least a little bit was Traylon Ray, who was another 4-star wide receiver that came in for the Mountaineers in this same class. He's a true freshman as well. Just got onto campus not too long ago, but he's a bit more, prototypical outside receiver height, 6'3", 180, 190 pounds. And Neil Brown has mentioned that, the high school he went to, they ran a lot of the same concepts. So he really is ahead of the curve a little bit and has really impressed them. And he really had some good things to say about it, but I'll quit rambling about it. Let's hear Neil Brown say it. Here's Neil Brown on Traylon Ray.
Traylon Ray, true freshman receiver, was our leading receiver in the scrimmage. And he's, from a freshman standpoint, he's doing some good things. I think he'll be in the mix for us. And then Preston and Hudson Clement both had nice days. So
yeah. So interestingly enough, actually led the team in receiving in the scrimmage, the first scrimmage from this past Saturday. So that's the first scrimmage of fall camp. Like I said, another one coming up here a couple of days from now, this Saturday. And that one is really where they will, start to separate the men from the boys, so to speak, as they're really trying to narrow down that 2 deep starting on Monday because this coming Monday is going to start their mock game week, right? Or no, I think the week after that will start the mock game week. I don't know. I can't remember right off because I'm trying to think what would the date be? Let's see, that would be the 21st through the 28th. So yeah, this coming Monday would start their mock game week because always it's the week before their actual game week. They do a mock game week. So that's coming up. So not only, I've talked about those top line guys, the experience they have, the JUCO guys coming into their second year, talked about some of the depth pieces that West Virginia brought in transfer wise and, returning guys. But then the freshmen are really standing out, to hearing those comments about Traylon Ray. And then, of course, we know the weapon that Rodney Gallagher can be. So we'll see how that plans out as well. But it's really, really good stuff. Silas, what's going on, man? Appreciate you always being here, tuning in and chiming in. He says, hey, it's CRW Live. Let's go. Glad I got home from work in time. Hey, glad you could pop in. Yeah, man, I swear it feels like I think it may have been a month since I've had a chance to do a live stream, but usually through fall camp, I try and do one every week, and we're going to try and do one every week throughout the season as well, of course, in addition to the podcast episodes that'll be releasing weekly once the season gets going. But we've kicked off season 6 of the podcast with the season prediction roundtable. I'm going to have the Penn State preview drop in sometime August 25th to August 28th range. That'll be the Penn State preview and predictions episode. And then it's full speed ahead from there. It'll be a live stream every week and, leading up to the game. And then we'll have, of course, our post-game live streams immediately following the game's end. And then, of course, our preview podcast releasing every week as well. So going to be more CRW lives coming for sure, but definitely I wanted to hop on here. I wanted to talk, some Big 12 stuff. There definitely was breaking news on the basketball side. Had to talk about that. So appreciate you being here as well, Silas. Glad we got another live stream going here. WVU Football Going Deep says Favaris, Cutter, and Lathan have all put on weight/muscle and are pretty good weight for the position. Cutter's physical development so quickly was a pleasant surprise. Favaris has 4.4 speed. I'm glad to hear that about Cutter because that's what I was a little bit worried about because I think on the official roster they did have him at 215, but I haven't checked it in a while. I need to pull it up and see what they got him at now. But either way, it's good news that they've, and I would expect nothing less. Mike Joseph does a great job, putting weight on players in short order. I think that's like Jacoby Spells. They said his bench went up like 110 pounds from, this time last year to now. His bench press has increased that much, and that's really going to help at the cornerback position. I think that's something that hurt West Virginia last season was they were having to play young guys before they were ready. I think those guys are physically ready now, whether you're talking about Jacoby Spells or even Andrew Wilson-Lamp, who's taken a while to transition his body from, a thin, speedy wide receiver to, a cornerback that can be physical on the outside. And I think he's got a great frame, obviously 6'3". And I think Andrew Wilson-Lamp's going to surprise some people at the cornerback position. But I wanted to see what Cutter was listed at on the official roster and pulling that up real quick, seeing if he's he's up to 224 on the official roster, actually. Thanks for pointing that out, WV Football Going Deep. That's awesome. So I think that maybe factors into, Ben Cutter seeing some time at that will position as well. And personally, I think West Virginia is in the spot they're in at the will position where it's a competition between those three guys who I think all have great potential. You even mentioned Favaris having 4.4 speed, and he looked super fast in the spring game. And I think he originally came as a defensive back, one of West Virginia's international players. So I could see that. I believe he's from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember right off. But the reason West Virginia is in this spot, I think, is just because of the injury to Josiah Trotter. If Trotter was around, that's your starter at will linebacker day one as a true freshman. I believe he was physically ready, nearly 240 pounds. And so I think he may step into that role right away next season. Or, this may, I don't want to say it's a silver lining because you don't want to ever say that about an injury, but this may provide a window for him now with this being Lee Koba's senior year, one of the only, I think, 5 or 6 seniors on this roster. Once Lee Koba moves on, he could potentially slide over and start at Mike even next year now if one of these guys develop at will this season. So, you don't want to ever call an injury a silver lining, but it could be a way for West Virginia to have talented young players in the lineup together next season, but that's down the line. But, I just wanted to point out that if Trotter was here, I think he would certainly be the starter at will. But with this competition going on, sounds like Lathan took a step ahead, but, with Cutter bulking up and Favaris' speed, you never know till you know. But hopefully we'll know here in the next, few days to a week's time. We're going to start to know a depth chart soon, guys. I'm excited. We're almost there. Silas says, love that we have an RG3. Yeah, that is great because he is, Rodney Gallagher III. So I love RG3. I love that as well. W Football Going Deep says, but who was the Lightning? Marshall says, we'll see, but wouldn't name. Horton seems too obvious. Yeah, I don't know. Horton was the one that came to mind to me just because maybe, he doesn't realize that a lot of people have spoken out about Horton's speed already. He doesn't realize that Garrett Green went on 3 guys and spoke about it. And, Tony Caridi spoke about it and said CJ Donaldson told him. So maybe he doesn't realize that people have already been raving about his speed and he was trying to be a little coy about it. That's who stood out, first to me. So I don't know though, but it's interesting. It was an interesting comment for sure. Braxton says, what are your predictions for WVU versus Penn State? Like I said, once we get closer to that game, we're going to be recording our podcast episode within the next, 7 to 10 days. I'll dive in more and be able to give you, a better prediction on that show once we do a full preview. But I can tell you for now on the season prediction roundtable, I predicted it as a loss. But I did and do still believe we'll cover the spread, which I think at this time is 20.5 points. And I'm even so confident of us covering that I've already put, a little bit of change on that. Not nothing major, but, a couple of dollars, just because it's such a big spread. I think that we could certainly cover that. That's what I can tell you, Braxton. And I think we're going to give them a good fight. I think West Virginia is going to be a motivated team this season, personally. And then I've got just a couple of clips from fall camp I wanted to share that West Virginia football has shared on their social media, most of which were from that scrimmage. The first is kind of a compilation highlight thing they put together. I'll show you guys that one. And then there's a Jalen Anderson highlight from, I believe, that same scrimmage. And then a Justin Johnson highlight that they actually put out today. But starting with this little compilation, just a couple things if you guys haven't seen them yet. So it's unfortunately no audio, but you can still see some things there. I see Devin Carter there. There's Nico. Look like Montre Miller in coverage. Jaheim White. I think he has a nice run here in a moment as well. Yeah, there's Jaheim White again. There's Rodney Gallagher on the catch. Hudson Clement that we talked about earlier. Great catch on the sideline. That's Jalen Anderson wearing number 0 this year. Preston Fox, like I said, he's going to get some playing time this season. The Jalen Anderson touchdown looked like. Hudson Clement from Nico again. So that's just a little highlight compilation from the scrimmage. And then I just had to show this one right here because I loved this run right here from Jalen Anderson. Guys, check out the shiftiness on this run from Jalen Anderson. This also, of course, coming from the official WVU football Twitter/X page. But check this out, guys. Whew, that move right there is nice, man. I think Jalen Anderson is so underrated. He is really one of my favorites, guys. I think he's going to have a good season this year, and just having him and CJ together is going to be special. And then you're adding a home run hitter and Jaheim White to that mix. And then not to mention Justin Johnson, who we hadn't heard about a lot in fall camp, which I think leads a lot of us to thinking maybe Jaheim White's jumping him on the depth chart. But I think West Virginia is going to find a way to get all 4 of these guys playing time. And Neil Brown even mentioned that Justin Johnson's been consistent in, a recent press conference. Just when you thought you weren't hearing a lot about Justin Johnson, then Neil Brown finally comes out and, says he's actually been, maybe one of the most consistent ones through fall camp. And to go along with that, today we get a nice Justin Johnson highlight here. See him breaking tackles and then getting loose. So see if I can pull this one up here. Just a final little fall camp clip I've got for you guys coming from the official WVU football X, I guess it's called now. But here's Justin Johnson now. You can see that just breaking through some arm tackles and then taking it to the house. So you like to see that. I think, that just goes to show that deep West Virginia backfield. We're talking about 4 guys that I think will see playing time. And, that's not including a true freshman in DJ Oliver, who may or may not see playing time in 4 or less games this season. I think he's going to redshirt, whether he sees the field some or not. But I think he's a guy that can be a weapon in the future as well. You're talking about a guy that's the same size, basically, as CJ Donaldson, just a bit shorter. CJ Donaldson's, 6'1", 6'2". DJ Oliver's, 5'10", 5'11", but still around 240 pounds, but nearly a 4.5 speed guy. So he's quick to be that big. So he's a guy that's going to be, a weapon down the line. And I think him and Jaheim White coming in as true freshmen bring in a great West Virginia running back class, true freshman running back class. But just overall, this running back room for West Virginia, it's got to be the strongest in, I don't know how long, guys. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but that 2016 team, they had some great success, but that was really just Wendell Smallwood mainly carrying the load. I think you had Russell Shell there and, another running back who shall not be named. But I think that this backfield's certainly better than that one, in my opinion. I think you got to go back maybe to Devine and Slayton and when they were together in that backfield. So, yeah, I think, Devine, Slayton, Schmidt, that's the last time you had a backfield maybe this loaded. And this backfield's just deep, guys. There's all of these guys can make an impact. I mentioned CJ Donaldson, is a guy that has all Big 12 type potential. And Jalen Anderson, let's not forget, he was, even higher rated as a recruit than CJ Donaldson was. Jalen Anderson was a 4-star guy. So was Justin Johnson. And then you got Jaheim White, who we've raved a ton about already. He just brings a different element that West Virginia hasn't had in years. That, quick twitch, speedy guy that's a home run hitter, and he's going to find ways to get involved this year. So I'm super excited about that running back room, guys. But that's pretty much all the clips I had, all the topics I had. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Big 12 Conference. We did that. Had to talk about Noah Farrakhan, the new basketball commit. We got that done, and then covered a good bit of football camp topics. But I'll catch up on some more of your guys' comments here, and then get up out here. But appreciate you guys tuning into this live stream. And like I said, definitely more of these to come. Should be at least one weekly, save for maybe the week of the West Virginia game, unless Brad or Steven want to run that one that week. I'm going to be on a honeymoon. Actually, I'm getting married the Saturday before the first game. So that's, I'm trying to get everything recorded ahead of time, edited and scheduled to upload that week and still get everything out to you guys. So you guys shouldn't miss any content, save for maybe one live stream. But I'll be back, in time to do the post game stream and all that. So like I said, it's that time, guys. Going to be a podcast episode every week, live stream every week, and post game stream essentially every week, and save for the bye week. So getting closer and closer. So let's catch up on some of your all's comments, and then we'll call it a night for this stream. But appreciate you guys tuning in to this August 17th CRW live stream. He says for basketball, Braxton asked, do I think we target 2 more transfers as a walk-on, or do you think we stop adding players? I don't think they'll add 2 more players. I think they could add 1 more player potentially, because I think they want to have a fallback in case both waivers are declined for Farrakhan and for Raekwon Battle. Although, like I said, they feel good about Battle's waiver being approved. I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe add 1 more transfer and figure out a way to, maybe add him as a walk-on and, cover his scholarship with NIL money or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see us add 1 more transfer. I think that we really could use another big man to provide some depth there, but we'll see. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're pretty confident in what they have there. W Football Going Deep says whoever starts will likely see a lot of rotation at will and most other positions for once we have the depth to do it. Yeah, that's something we got to keep in mind as well, guys. This is, year 5 of this coaching staff. And so they finally have, really started to build some depth and have some pieces that they like. We referenced that Bilal Marshall press conference from earlier today, where I think he feels like he could go 8 or 9 deep at receiver even. So West Virginia does have some depth, I think. Great point to make there, W Football Going Deep at least. And I didn't even see your comment here. He talked about the same thing I just said about the 8-9 wide receivers, and Jordan Leslie talking about 9 to 11 defensive linemen. And the defensive line is something that I'm impressed with, the depth that they've really put together there, because you don't really know until you know. I feel like I keep saying that like a broken record, and we won't know until we get to the games and see who plays in crunch time. Like I said, you're going to find out right off the bat with West Virginia's first opponent being top 10 Penn State. But West Virginia has some guys there on the defensive line. I think Eddie V, Mike Lockhart, and Sean Martin is probably who I'm looking at to start there, but don't count out Day-Day Hawkins moving into that starting lineup, though. I think he's going to be a guy that really is disruptive on that defensive line. So he was a great transfer West Virginia brought in, and that's 4 guys right there just off the top of my head. And you're not even getting into some of the other transfers that you brought in, to Miwa Duraje, a young guy that you're waiting to develop like Asani Redwood, just a ton of guys on that defensive line. So I could certainly see the 9 to 11 deep there. I think he's not lying there. We talk a lot about coach speak this time of year, and sometimes they rave about players and we never see them. But I think that their depth that they're talking about with this team is legit. Sal says he likes to see running backs breaking arm tackles, but I don't like to see our guys trying to make arm tackles. Yeah, that's the bad thing about camp highlights, right? Is it looks really good in one aspect and really bad in another. So I think they've done a good job, though, showing, some good defensive highlights as well. I didn't share any of them here, but I did see, some good stuff. I've seen a tip ball interception they've shared, and some good tackling highlights as well. And it seems like it's been a focus. At least that's what the coaches are saying, that their tackling and being physical is going to be a focus. They felt like they didn't do enough of that last season. So hopefully that's true, but didn't look that great there, Silas. Silas says, congrats on the upcoming wedding. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. What are we watching? Says, yo, hey, what's up? What are we watching? Appreciate you hopping in here and chiming in, man. I don't think I've seen you in here before. Hey, subscribe if you haven't. And that goes for anyone that's in here for the first time. If you're a college sports fan, West Virginia fan specifically, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Helps us, helps you, helps get more of this Mountaineer sports content out to Mountaineer Nation. And be sure, hit the like button, hit that thumbs up. Helps if you're watching this live or on a playback. It'll help this video's performance and future videos performances here on the channel. But appreciate everyone that's tuned in and chimed into this one. W Football Going Deep says, we've had years with a couple of great backs, but I don't think ever 5 deep. Yeah, I can't think of that either. I can think of, maybe 3, sometimes close to 4, but not like this season where I think I don't know how much we'll see DJ Oliver play. Like I said, maybe in up to 4 games because I feel like they'll probably want to redshirt him. But I feel like all 4 of those guys, Jaheim White, Jalen Anderson, Justin Johnson, and CJ Donaldson are all going to see pretty significant playing time, probably from the start of the season, from game 1. So definitely a very deep backfield for West Virginia. I'm super excited to see how things progress. Next week's live stream, I'm not exactly sure what we'll get into, but I'm thinking maybe we'll talk a little depth chart because after this Saturday scrimmage, we should know a little bit more about that. So maybe it'll be a depth chart prediction show, or if not, and I don't know enough about, to feel like I can do a depth chart projection, we'll do some stat predictions. How about that? And some superlatives, maybe some over-unders, things like that. So that's what I'm thinking maybe for next week's live stream. But appreciate you guys that tuned into this one. It's been fun. Super excited about Noah Farrakhan joining WVU basketball, but even more excited that we're very, very close to the start of football season and things are really taking off now on the channel. This is the start of our busy season. It's going to be steady content coming from now to the end of basketball season, really, especially because, you get those overlap between the 2 sports and then football rides right into basketball. And so a lot of content here throughout the rest of 2023 coming on the Country Roads webcast. So no better time to subscribe than now. Plenty of football content coming in the near future as we progress through fall camp and get closer and closer to the start of the season. Super excited for it and super excited to talk about it with you guys throughout Mountaineer Nation. But having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.